Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's your host, the Truth Buster, once again, on September 11th, 2015. While we're seeing the uptick of refugees flee from Syria to European countries all over, and it's insanity. It's just, all I gotta say is crazy, just straight up insanity. But let's get to the root of the problem as to why it's occurred. And this is another article from blacklistednews.com. You guys should check the site out. They got a lot of great stuff on there. And the article I'm going to go off is titled, "The Real Story Behind the Refugee Migrant Crisis in Europe is Much Stranger Than Fiction." And the source is from Storm Clouds Gathering. If you watch the news, you probably heard about the refugee crisis in Europe, or the migrant crisis, as some refer to it. Hundreds of thousands of asylum seekers from the Middle East and Africa are flooding across the borders. As of July, European countries has received over 430,000 asylum applications for the year. In 2014, just over 840,000 applications were received. So why is this happening? Where are migrants, refugees coming from? Why are there so many of them? The corporate media and political establishment of both the left and the right will answer these questions with a combination of half-truths and outright lies. This shouldn't be surprising in their interest to cover up the role they played in creating the crisis. Let's take a look at the top 7 countries of origin for these refugees: Syria, Afghanistan, Kosovo, Eritrea, Serbia, Pakistan, Iraq. Is there a pattern in that list? A lot of attention has been being put on Syria because that's where the largest numbers are coming from. Hundreds of thousands are fleeing a conflict that has raged since 2011. And many are using this push for an escalation of military force by the West, because obviously if we were to bomb the heck out of the place, everything will go to normal. Of course, it sounds perfectly rational to take down ISIS. These guys are nasty. But upon closer inspection, we find out that the West is much more focused on removing President Assad from power. That might strike you as absurd, considering that the Syrian government is one of the last forces preventing ISIS from completely taking over the region. But it makes much more sense once you see how ISIS rose to power in the first place, who funded them, who armed them. Oh, they don't like to talk about that, do they? Since 2011, the U.S. and its allies have been backing rebel groups in Syria. The goal, of course, being regime change. This escalated right after they had finished topping Libya. There's a reason for that. The weapons from Gaddafi's armies were shipped through Turkey into Syria and distributed to combatants. Even at the time, it was clear that the majority of these weapons were ending up in the hands of jihadists. The official narrative was that these rebels were freedom fighters and that this was an organic uprising, an extension of the Arab Spring. The media and political establishment in both the U.S. and Europe stuck to this story, and so it became impossible to hide the atrocities being committed by these so-called freedom fighters. A DoD document from 2012 showed that U.S. government was fully aware of the fact that these fighters were connected to Al-Qaeda in Iraq, ISIS, before they rebanded. The document showed that the U.S. knew that the fighters were supporting intended to form a caliphate. Not only did they know what was happening, they viewed it as a good thing. In fact, in 2012, the CFR released an article openly stating that, in short, the FSA needs Al-Qaeda now. Publicly, Washington continued to claim that the West was only assisting the moderate rebels. The FSA in particular, however, was that the FSA was very open about the fact that they regularly conducted joint operations with al-Nusra, and al-Nusra had direct alliances with ISIS. No matter how you cut it, the U.S. and its allies brought ISIS to power, and in doing so, they created a flood of refugees. And let's not forget, this is how it all started. Who toppled Iraq and Afghanistan, creating a power vacuum, unleashing decades of chaos and destruction, and creating breeding grounds for extremists. It's no accident that these are among the top countries of origin for refugees. While it may be convenient for Europeans to pin the blame entirely on the U.S., the reality of the fact is that European leaders have not only enabled Washington by refusing to call them out, but they also played an active and direct role in the aggression. The blood is on their hands too. It's not in the interest to tell you the truth. These factual commissions play right into the hands of the right-wing backlash, which frames the debate as simply as an immigration issue and plays off for the public's distrust of Muslims. Those who actually created the mess are perfectly happy to let the victims become scapegoats. This is a classic case of problem, reaction, solution. You're being tricked. You're being hardened towards more war, more chaos, more suffering, which ironically will just create more refugees. So, and this covers some of the issues I reported out on another article of why this is happening. Governments created ISIS, they created Al-Qaeda. The documents are finally released this year saying that they created the problem and they were very aware of what was going on. So you want to know what the truth, what's going on there? Well, here it is. It's because of the government created destruction force known as ISIS. They're invading countries, they're setting up camp, and they're pushing all of the non-radicals out. That's all I have time for now. I want to thank you for tuning in. Be blessed and have a safe day.